Okay, let's go ahead and get started. What I'd like to do is for each of you to briefly introduce yourself, uh, tell us a little bit about what inspired you to get into the wholesaling business, and where are you in the journey? Do you consider yourself still in the startup phase, the scaling up process, or have you achieved the sustainable growth level? And Patrick, let's start with you.
Yeah, thanks for
What's
having
your
me.
biggest ham in the room?
California, born and raised. Actually from Southern California. Lived in Northern California for a while. Now I'm back in Southern California. I'm living in one of my sub twos. But yeah, I started wholesaling. Man, what was it? 2022, 2023, somewhere in there. I was all over the place, to be honest. I joined sub two, and as you guys already know, there's a lot of information. There's a lot of things that they throw at you. So because of that intrinsic nature, I was all over. I didn't really have any focus. And then the elephant challenge just started, and I just decided, you know what? I'm gonna stick to one market, and I'm gonna stick to one channel, and I'm gonna stick to one goal. And that's when really the rubber hit the road, and we started to kind of make a lot more consistent revenue. So yeah, I would say we're stabilizing and we're about to scale. We're only a team of three. We're hiring two. Actually, we're hiring another VA and two full-time people. So not huge. We're generating like six figures a quarter, nothing crazy. But we want to get to a point by the end of 2025 and the beginning of 2026 to start taking down our own deals and really flipping our own properties. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at. We're a 100% direct to agent. We only deal with agents. We were doing direct to seller, and we just kind of bit off way more than we could chew. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Did I answer everything for the intro there? Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds pretty good.
All right.
I'll give you an A for that one.
Oh, yes.
There you go. Efren, why don't you take the next?
Okay, perfect. So Efren Gomez, born and raised in Bakersfield, California, Central California. I'm still here right now. Just like Patrick, I'm also staying in a sub two that I purchased end of last year. A little bit about me too that even Gary might not know, but I started in real estate back in 2002, a little bit out of high school. Didn't really know what direction I was going to go, get my license, no license, loan officer. I had no idea. My mom, who's still, my business partner to this day, kind of behind the scenes, she was a loan officer at the time with Gateway Bank Mortgage. And I started going in there and just kind of learning and her out, and I liked it. Met a guy by the name of Cedric Crawford. He came in and said, hey guys, I'm an investor. Just a little bit about what I do. And I said, oh, that's what I want to do, So kind of went down that path, decided not to get my license and just stay focused on that. Was watching an infomercial in like 2003 or so for a guy by the name of Marco Rubel talking about the pretty house business. And he taught me how to do subject to back in 2004. Bought my first property in 2004, subject to. Was going to fix and flip it. Ended up actually kind of wrapping it, I guess, so to speak, because it became a kind of a rent to own is what I did. That was the process that he taught. Fast forward, 2008, lost a lot of money. Just fix and flipping, primarily buying some rentals. Wasn't really doing wholesaling at all. And then decided in 2008, took a break for a little while because I lost so much money after the crash. 5, 6 years, went back into the oil industry, was still doing real estate part-time. Got back into it full-time, maybe, 2012, 2014, something like that. Buying some more properties, doing some more subject to deals. I was not wholesaling still to that point. Joined Sub 2 mentorship just because I felt like even though I knew 95% of what he was talking about, there's always something I can learn. And it was more so to kind of get boots on the ground everywhere and just meet new people and be surrounded by those like-minded individuals. So I joined the mentorship in March of 22, I believe. It'll be, 3 years next month. Decided to become a leader in the mentorship. And my wholesaling journey probably started maybe 2.5 years ago or something like that. Since then, I was doing it all by myself for the most part, probably making $20,000 to $40,000 a month. Decided around 6 to 8 team up with two other guys that I met here locally. Two of us are more visionaries. One of them's the integrator. He's helped us with, CRM and all the stuff that, gives me a headache, So put me on the phone, let me close deals, man. Let me move on to the next one. Just grind 7 days a week and let him worry about everything on the back end. It took a few months to kind of get things, dialed in. We're still in the scaling process right now. Our goal in the next 6 months is to, hit consistently 6 figures a month. We've had some 60, 80,000, dang near close to 6 figures, but ironing out the kinks. We're a 3-man team right now. Other business partner, Jesse, is also, he's visionary / integrator. I've been teaching him how to close, and so he's going a little bit more to being a closer now. It's just the 3 of us. We're eventually going to hire out probably our first junior acquisition guy or gal, just to kind of warm up the leads. I say it like put the ball on the tee for me and let me knock it out the park. Doing a little bit of cold calling. We did do text blasting for a little while last year. We stopped doing that, and now we're just focusing on the cold calling, direct to agent, direct to seller, some PPL, and getting more into PPC and mailers now is what we're doing this year. So
Nice.
a little bit about me, man. Hopefully I explained enough there.
That's really excellent. Thank you for sharing.
Awesome.
Brayton, take us home.
Thanks, Gary. Yeah, my name's Brayton Furlong. I'm from Santa Cruz, California. And thanks for having all of us on here. But yeah, I got into real estate. My wife and I bought our first house in 2017 in Santa Cruz as a total fixer-upper, tear down. Even the inspector tried to talk us out of buying that property. We bought it, remodeled it, lived in it for a few years. It was the dream to let's build a backyard, or we wanted to have rentals. We didn't know how or what. We kind of stumbled across a Rob Abasolo video. I don't know if you guys know him, big short-term rental guy. Anyway, our dream was to have, we kind of like started pivoting towards wanting to have rentals, and we ended up kind of honing in on short-term rentals. We're like, hey, we've stayed in them. Why not do that? Seems like you can make good money doing it. Seems like a fun business. And next thing you know, we joined his community. In 2 weeks, we finished all the modules, moved into an RV, launched our first short-term rental in our first home. And after that, just started scaling, bought a couple more cabins out in the Smoky Mountains. Our second one was actually a sub 2, which we got before joining sub 2. I was just watching Pace's content on YouTube, went out and made an offer, closed the first one I got. It was just 4% entry. It was pretty unreal. And rewind a little bit, we actually had joined the short-term rental mentorship. We joined a private money raising mentorship, learned how to raise. So we actually raised some PML on that second short-term rental we did, which was really cool to kind of put all pieces together, creative combined with raising private capital and coming out of pocket with none of our own money. So some cool stuff. And I was watching Pace and I was like, that's like the next level, was all the creative finance stuff. And our goal really with joining sub 2 was to implement all the creative strategies with scaling into a short-term rental, portfolio. And it was funny. It was like the third deal we did. I had a TC working with me and she's like, are you going to hold it or assign it? And I had never heard of what an assignment. I had never heard that before. And I was like, assign it. I started doing some research and I was like, oh, I could have made 20 to 30 grand maybe on this. And that's kind of when the light bulb went on, where I was like, maybe I can acquire some, assign some, build some active income. And that's kind of how I got into wholesaling. And we joined sub 2 basically to get into wholesaling. And it was probably our 5th mentorship at that point. And so we had, really we thought we were going to be these short-term rental investors, and ended up going down the rabbit hole of wholesaling. We did 0 to hero, got a CRM, hired 3 VA, virtual assistants, started cold calling, and just got our asses kicked.
Yeah.
Spent a bunch of money, but I got some reps in on the phone. It was really good, and I made all the mistakes you should make, probably said all the wrong things, and we ended up locking up a couple deals in a few months. One was way too rural in a total teardown, so it ended up failing. We had to cancel. The other one was a short-term rental, but it was a condo. It was a tough sell. The buyer got weird, so we just had like stuff falling out right from the beginning, and kind of had all the hard lessons. And it kind of hurt, but it was good because we took a step back for like a month, took a month off, and I told my wife, I was like, look, she's a nurse. I said, you go nurse. Let me start rebuilding this thing the way I think it should. And I started going down the rabbit hole, and since then it started to click. So that was a little less than 2 years ago. and simply meet with some TCs and some JV partners. I've been focusing on agent outreach in the short-term rental niche, so doing a lot of sub-2 and hybrid deals in the short-term rental markets nationwide, as well as working with JV partners. And then I've been doing some PPL, direct to seller, which took a while to figure out how to close those. But once they started closing, those have been a great addition to what I'm doing. So I have a few marketing channels, mostly that I'm focusing on. It's mostly me now. My wife kind of stepped aside. We got rid of the VAs, but I'm wanting to bring a couple of VAs back in because I know what roles I want them for now, and start to build a small, lean, mean team, and eventually, get to that point where I can scale and kind of remove myself from a lot of the day-to-day stuff. But for now, staying focused and learning all the everything I need to know in order to hire properly and kind of put those people and build that team that I really need. So that's where I'm at.
So cool. I kind of thought that the three of you would all classify yourselves as like mid-journey. Is that fair?
So yeah.
Yeah, pretty fair statement. So Patrick,
we spent like last year $192,000 on coaching and marketing. And we were like, what are we doing? I mean, we were making good money and we had a great profit margin. And so what do? Well, the next step is to hire a coach, right? Get somebody who's got systems, who's going to hold you accountable, who can help you create a legitimate business. So we did. And what are they doing? Something completely different than what we're doing, right? So instead of us trying to take what their operations and systems look like and apply it to what's working, we tried to adopt what they were doing, right? And so it was like Brayton said, I probably made all the mistakes that I had to make. One of them, you get in and you're kind of all over the place, and then you get the shiny object syndrome, and you go after it, and then you realize, oh wait, what I was doing was working, right? And so where we're at now is we have a complete onboarding program where I can get a VA up and running in like 2 weeks. We now know all the numbers behind the actions that have to happen for us to convert and for us to actually make consistent revenue. We have all that data, so we can set expectations for people coming in, and we know what that's going to look like. And now that all of that is finished, now you can actually add fuel to the fire, right? So I think that's one of the things that's tough for most people getting in, whether it's wholesaling or creative, is you first of all, you got to get proof of concept. And then the next step is like, all right, well, what did I just do? Right? Like, can we document that process? And then can I get somebody with low skill to get into a position where I can reward them to put in the work and kind of start to slowly scale myself out? And that's, I think, the biggest challenge for most people starting is understanding all that. And some people never even get to that point.
You answered the question I was about to ask almost intuitively. That's how, I haven't done a Zoom with you in a while, but my question was, what systems and tools have made the biggest dramatic difference, have been a game changer? I think you pretty much answered that, didn't you?
Well, I'll let these guys answer because I'm sure they've got systems and processes that are different than mine. But yeah, I'll definitely open the hood and kind of explain what we're doing. But go ahead, guys.
Yeah, Brayton, what about you? What systems and tools have made the biggest difference in
so the CRM I'm using has some integrators that are kind of built in. They're there. So that's been a huge help. And a lot of it's been pre-built with some great workflows and automations. They help me kind of connect zappings and get everything talking, which is great. But what I found, and I've experimented with, I was doing some AI voice calling this year. I even closed a couple deals doing that, but I ended up firing Donna. That was her name. I fired her as quick as I hired her because it also killed a few deals because it's just not quite there yet for me. But I've been experimenting. But what's funny is I was using AI to text and respond and trying to automate stuff almost too much. And what I noticed was almost like subtracting and getting back to like basics with just being a good communicator is what wholesaling is. It's any business. Like your ability to communicate with the seller, a buyer, TCs, agents, everyone involved, title companies during a transaction is what gets deals closed. You don't have to use necessarily this perfect script. You need to take a script and then make it your own. Be yourself, right? But it really comes down to communication. That's at the core what I've noticed. I've been closing way more deals just through is really all it comes down to, building rapport through just talking to people, having, conversations like what Brent Daniels says. He makes it sound, a lot of those gurus make it sound so simple because they've been doing it so long, but at the core, it's really good advice. Stuff like have a conversation with the seller,
Well, so anybody, if I don't ask
Did I
this
answer your question?
well, if I don't ask this follow-up question, people listening to this now and down the road will think I'm an idiot. What is the CRM you're using?
I'm using Open Dispo with Rick Sheldon's CRM.
Okay, cool.
And
yeah,
he's a total brainiac wizard with it. So it's an awesome CRM. Go high level, build on Go high level, and yeah, it has some basic workflows that work really good. I mean, it has so much stuff I can't even begin to really start on that. But I use it for multiple processes. I do some agent outreach kind of blasting where I'm pulling lists, some different websites, uploading them. And then I have some automated text. So it streamlines, it makes the initial contact more efficient. And then I can kind of take over and close deals and send LOIs. I have an LOI generator I use. I've experimented with LOI Blaster, but I do a lot more stuff kind of partly automated, partly manual still. That way I get all the numbers right and make good offers and stuff like that. I have my PPLs come into my CRM, and a text goes out instantly, and then I call right away and stuff like that. So
yeah, Patrick's actually an expert at Go high level, and I know Efren. Tell us about what systems and methods made the biggest difference in your business.
Absolutely. Well, we're definitely in a sales and marketing business, right? That's all this is. I mean, marketing, and then how do we close it on the sales side? 20 years ago, my was a yellow pad, where I would just flip. Like, there was no such thing as a CRM. There wasn't YouTube. I think I barely got rid of my pager at the time. It's insane, man. It's one of those where I'm so old school though, Gary, where I'm stuck. And it wasn't until I met my two partners where I knew already years ago that, hey, I need some type of CRM. But because I'm 100% visionary, there's no integrator in me at all. I'm like, dang, I just need to connect with an integrator to help me get this done. Because what I did notice, and what I do know though, over the years of owning other businesses, I owned a trucking company. I did a wooden pallet business for years. When I was 18, I had a vending machine company. So I understand business, and it's systems and processes and SOPs. One of my first jobs, back when I was like in 7th grade working in oil fields, the day you get hired, they give you a binder that was like this thick and said, "Here, P's, learn that. This is your Bible within this business." And I'm like, what's an SOP? I'm in 7th grade, going into 8th grade, working for my uncle, and I'm like, holy crap. Okay, this makes sense though, right? Everything has an SOP. There's an SOP for everything. And so that we're not calling, "Hey, Uncle Jimmy, how do I do this? Did you read your SOP?" Right? So I know that had to be there. And that's what I'm doing right now with my business partners, right? Still creating SOPs for everything, so that, like Patrick said, right? It's just a rinse and repeat. If I hire someone, fire someone, bring on someone new, here's the videos, here's what you got to watch. This is how you do your job, So we're working on that. We use Go High Level too as well. We started out probably 8 months ago with RE Simply. We realized quickly that it wasn't as advanced as we already were. We wanted to integrate a little bit more with the automation and the Facebook, advertise PPC and PPO and everything coming in from all these different channels and the texting. It took me a little while because, for me, I'm not tech savvy. So it's like, hey, build it. And it took like 3 months for my integrator to build it. And then I'm like, then teach me how to use it, but just show me the basics. I don't want to see everything else that you have to worry about because it's going to confuse me. So, he built it, he showed me. And now I realize, when I can see the emails and the text messages and the phone calls all in one section and all the notes, for that particular person, it was a little bit of a learning curve for me, because I'm just the guy. You get me on the phone and I'll close anything, anyone, anywhere. But you show me how to use that, I'm like, wait, what's going on here, guys? I'm like, hey man, I have a problem here and I don't know how to go back. I think I just messed something up. So that took me a little bit of time. But I'll tell you right now, like the CRM is very important, because like you guys both said, follow up this business, no matter what you're doing. We got some 6 months later, we're finally closing on, because we put them in the drip campaign, and every month it's touching bases with them behind the scenes, which is like more than what I can do. What I used to do with just a cell phone, with the BlackBerry back in the day or whatever it was. Like now it's just doing all this for me, We've used a little bit of AI too. Gen AI we kind of used. I feel like, she needed some more practice, So like over the last 6 months, things have been kind of getting better with that. We still kind of, implement that a little bit. We're just anticipating, where the future is going to.
You're talking about prop AI.
Yeah. Probably.
Nathan KL and
Yeah, and she's doing better as the months go on,
still a little bit of latency there that's
Yeah.
weird, right? Yeah.
But to talk
it'll come
to
along. It is a lot for sure.
hundreds of people at the same time, which is something I cannot do.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And like I said earlier, I just want it to be like set up on the tee so that I can knock it out the park. So if it does that for me, has the simple conversation, bring it to me, Heffer, now you close it, it's great, But Go High Level's been amazing. It's just taking some time for me to learn on that.
Yeah, what we've done, and I think we got to a point where like, okay, we're making money. This is working. Now, like, how can we optimize, right? And I think for those listening, we're all at different points of our career. But the one thing that was really made a difference for us and really moved the needle is we kind of sat down with intention and thought, where are the points of friction in what we're doing, right? What's taking time out of our schedule? Because to like Brayton's point, like too much technology is bad. Can be an issue, right? And it has to be a delicate and intelligent balance. And so for us, it was filing. So when I mean filing, if an agent brings us pictures or inspections or whatever, creating a file for that, putting those files away. I don't want somebody in acquisitions having to take a lot of time doing that. I want them on the phone. I want them texting. I want them closing. So now our system will automatically, we used AI and Go High Level to pull the opportunity title. If it has a zip code, we'll actually put it in a county folder inside of Google folder. The folder will have a parent folder with nested folders, and it'll have a folder for pictures, inspections, all that stuff, so that all they have to do is copy and paste all the information, as opposed to going into a folder, putting the address, doing all that stuff. So it's really fast. We also now have automation that if we're missing information, and maybe we're missing inspections or we're missing, put somebody into a drip campaign where it references not only that address that we need missing information for, but it will give them that link so that that agent can actually upload to the proper folder, right? So things like that, asking yourself, how can I actually reduce friction, and how can I have people like Efren, who's a killer on the phone, stay on the phone, right? The next thing, the follow-up was the next thing that we saw, was like there's a huge point of friction there. There's a lot of time being spent in follow-up. So the problem with, or I should say the obstacle with Go High Level, is you just have a bunch of cards in a pipeline. We now filter them based on dates. So everything has a follow-up date that is associated to that card, and we have a show hide filter so that the acquisitions manager and or follow-up specialist on our team looks at their pipeline, and everything that they're looking at needs action today, right? Doesn't need action in the future. So that was another big point. And obviously those dates campaigns work in a cohesive manner. And then the last one, this was big. This is a big one too. And I see still a lot of big companies doing this, is underwriting. Like they'll have their acquisitions guys doing underwriting. I think that everybody should know underwriting. I can underwrite in my head. I can do that on the phone. I can, what I call shotgun underwrite something, and let an agent know like where we're off, why we're off. And I think anybody in acquisition should do that. However, I don't think they should be spending a lot of time doing that. I think they should be spending time on the phone, texting and emailing. So when we segmented underwriting from the acquisition position, we started closing way more contracts, because instead of them focusing on, really looking at the details and comping, which we all know takes a long time, They just followed our buy box. Number one is, does it meet the physical criteria that we're actually looking for? And number two, is their motivation, because we have a motivational scale, does it actually contextualize for them to work with an investor? Should we follow up on it, right? So the first buy box is pretty simple. The second one, we automate. We actually automate our motivation scale. And the way that we do this is we have custom values, which for those who are not techie, that's just information you plug into a cell. Like if you can imagine a form on our website, it's just a cell that stores information. So number one, is it financeable? Yes or no? That's 1 point of motivation. If it's not financeable, who do they have to work with eventually? You guessed it, us. So they might not be wanting to say yes today, but we know we're going to follow up with them because sooner or later it's going to go to an investor, right? The next is, do they need to sell versus want to sell? Are they downgrading? That's not exactly a high level of motivation. Are they going through a divorce, a foreclosure, and their mother needs cognitive care? That is a high level of motivation, right? That's point number two. And then point number three for us is timelines. Do they need to sell fast? Or is it some type of weird situation, flexible closing timeline? Is it post-possession, or do they need to get into another house, or a care facility or whatever? If it's a 3 out of 3, we're following it. If it's a 2 out of 3, we're following it. If it's a 1 out of 3, probably not going to follow it. And if it's a 0, obviously we're not following it. But as we're doing our intake, this automatically populates for us on the card, so we can quickly look at our pipeline and go, what needs action now? What's the highest motivation, right? So those are the 3 points that we've really focused on in terms of utilizing automation to reduce friction in the business.
Sounds awesome.
Yeah, I love it.
That took a while.
I eventually will be selling this
process.
product. Eventually, we will sell this thing that we created.
Awesome.
That's an investment for sure. So let me switch it up. Let's get off the systems and technology stuff, and let's talk about markets. So what markets are you focusing on, and why? You want to start with that one, Efren?
Yeah, I love focusing in my backyard, of course, and when everyone runs away from California, I stay here because I kill it. So I'm like, yeah, go ahead, keep going that way, and I'll get all the deals. So I stay heavy in Central California, basically everything from San Diego up to the Bay, though now, Nevada and Arizona at this point. Like I said, guys, I'm still old school. I'm 43 years old, whether you believe it or not, and I'm like, I like to still kind of touch, the properties that I'm dealing with. I do wholesale a lot, but I also buy and hold a lot too. So, for me, it's like I'm buying now for wraps, STRs, MTRs, co-living, group homes, you name it. That's what I'm doing. So I love to kind of stay focused in my market. But yeah, California, Nevada, and Arizona at this moment.
You, Brayden?
Awesome. Yeah, I'm definitely focused on PPLs in California predominantly. The Bay Area, kind of stick to this little zone, my backyard. I have buyers here, so it just makes the most sense for me. And I know the market well. One of the first buyers I sold to was a hedge fund out here, so that was a good contact. But and then for short-term rentals, it's the Smoky Mountains because that's where we invest, so we know that market well, and so I can underwrite. I know what a deal is pretty quickly when I'm on the phone, when I'm talking to people. So that's been a good market, and it's one of the top STR markets in the country. So it's fairly easy, a little easier to sell deals. But we've done deals in Texas with the short-term rental model. We do more nationwide. If it's a good STR market, we can find. If it's a good deal, we can find buyers. So predominantly creative for STRs, and then cash for fix and flip deals out here in the Bay Area. And then I do some dispo for other teams and JV deals like that.
I'm just curious, how do you assess a short-term rental market if you've not been in the market before? How would you approach that?
I mean, first thing I look at is just, are the terms decent? And then from there, I can do pretty quick underwrite just based on, it's a little different to comp them because you want to look at like comps on, Airbnb, bedroom count, amenities, stuff like that. So it's a little different comping, but you can get pretty quick at it, and you can get a pretty, like what you were saying, you kind of know, right? Mm-hmm. But yeah, you got to be careful right now. Short-term rentals it's a roller coaster, and right now it's been a little bit on a downtrend. So stuff's not performing like it was a couple of years ago during COVID. So you got to be a little conservative And that's also what's created all the opportunities, because you got a lot of people who bought them. They overpaid a couple of years ago. They got in at the peak during COVID. Everyone was traveling, and they thought it was going to be this easy cash cow, investment model, and it's not. It's a lot of work. It constantly changes. Now everyone's doing crazy amenities and painting their houses pink, and so it's not easy. So a lot of people got into it, and they just want out. So there's a lot of opportunity. But again, you still want them to work, right? Because you want the end buyer to be able to take those and make them perform. And that's the other thing is like a lot of the end buyers, they're not always, they really need to know how to self-manage. If really to maximize them, you've got to self-manage to get the STR loophole. You want to get the bonus depreciation. You want to like look at the whole picture, because that's how you really win. It's not just cash flow. But the buyers that know that can crush it and can offset their taxes, basically pay no taxes, maybe buy a Morby method once a year, zero entry, 2 sub-2s to offset that cash flow. That's Justin Thompson's method that he's recommending people do. He sells a lot of creative sub-2s and Morbys, but yeah.
And then, so in terms of like software, are you using like, I don't know, like an awning.com, for example, to assess this? How are you assessing like potential income for a short-term rental?
Yeah, so you can take a glance at AirDNA, but it's just a starting point. It's not very accurate. Then you're going to want to look at basically some actual comps on AirDNA and Airbnb, and you can see the revenue they've produced. And then you got to really look at how many bedrooms, what kind of amenities, does it have a view, what size of the room, stuff like that, which you maybe wouldn't focus normally on a cash fix and flip deal.
Right.
But for short-term rentals, it really matters, because the lake house with the dock and the boat versus the house a road back, right? It's not going to do the 150 a year. And so you got to just kind of look at that, and you can do kind of a 5 property analysis and pretty quickly come up with a range like, hey, it'll do 120. But there's a lot of strategies with short-term rentals, like pricing strategies, management style. There's a lot of ways to get up in the algorithm when you're operating those. So there's kind of the operator side too. You definitely want to go in and at least do a crash course seminar and learn all that stuff so you can perform it.
I'm definitely going to reach out to you, because I'm kind of running a cost benefit analysis on, because I love snowboarding. My girlfriend and I, we snowboard like every year. And I've been looking at Mammoth, and I'm like, man, it would be nice to have. But I'm not, I'm realistic. I get everything you just said. It makes sense. Like, it's not this whole like you buy it and if you build it, they will come type of scenario. Like, it's gonna be work. And like, I'm just like, does it make sense to own something? But yeah, you know what? I'll hit you up, and maybe if I'm lucky, you'll spend some time running me through it.
I think what Brayton said about operator, knowing how to operate, it's a unique business model. The people I know that are winning continue to win. They're really good operators. So what markets are you focusing on, Patrick?
Yeah, so for me, I actually arbitrarily started in a market just because Pace was like, you need to pick a market. And I was like, all right, I'll close my eyes and that one, right? And so we actually started in Sacramento, which I own property in, and I'm still interested in purchasing in Sacramento, but honestly, we don't do many deals there anymore. What we realized was, number one, we wanted liquidity, we wanted volume, and we wanted price points, right? So that's what we started to look at in the market. And so right now we're focused mainly in the Bay Area. So from like, I would say Contra Costa County all the way down to Santa Clara County and everything in between. And then with LA County, mainly LA, Orange County. But I would say most of what we do is actually in LA. So those are the 2 markets that we're in. We can move a deal anywhere, but we primarily focus on those markets. Occasionally we'll get, somebody who has a deal outside of those areas and we'll move it. But we try to stay focused just based on the price points, because, I'm sure you guys have experienced this where you have a lower price point. You're doing arguably the same or more amount of work on the deal, and you're making less, so arguably you're making less because every dollar hurts the seller more to break on because of the price point. So anyways, we kind of like to stick to like $500K up to $2.5-3 million in that range is like the sweet spot for us.
Especially when the buyer's paying attention to their cash on cash return after they purchase, and
100%. Right. Once we like pass that $1 million that threshold, I mean, we're only doing cash deals, but once we pass the $1 million threshold, we can actually start looking at cash on cash. Anything kind of looking at a net of retail in terms of our underwriting. But yeah, once you start to get into those bigger spreads, then there's multiple ways of looking at deals that make sense for buyers for sure.
Braden's the master of the bigger spread.
Well, I was going to ask you guys, are you guys double closing any, or are you assigning all of them?
Yeah, that's a great question. We work primarily with an escrow company that will double close, and however, we have not double closed anything yet. So we're ready to do it. We actually spent last year building up our business credit. We now have like $190,000 of business credit, most of it 0%. So for that purpose only, is just to put that EMD there. And so, yeah, it's funny that you bring that up. We're ready to do it. We just haven't done it. And this year, we've actually started to create a new criteria based on deals that we will submit EMD on and deals that we will not submit EMD on. Just because, as you already know, there's risk involved, and we want to increase our margins and reduce our risk. So, yeah.
Yeah, with California being a mutual release state, right? That's something wholesaling, you want to know where you are, what you're doing, right? Because you hate to lose. I mean, EMD is no joke out here. I mean, especially with agents. I mean, they want 3%, they want it in 3 days. It's like,
well, with $1 million properties, even 1% is a lot of freaking EMD.
Yeah.
So,
and double closing can be, I mean, I don't know how much. Do you have someone you've been talking to on how much they're going to charge you out here?
So because we're using a cashback card and we have a huge limit on it, it's 1.5% cashback. We're being charged 3%. So essentially we're being charged 1.5% on our EMD. Yeah. So for me, there's gators out there charging an arm and a leg.
Oh yeah,
for EMD
or something.
But for double closings, $2 million property.
well, double close.
So let me jump in, Gary. So like with us, double closing, there's 2 ways to do it. And there's very few title companies that'll do this. I don't even know if I want to say this on a recorded Zoom. Brayton, you and I can link up later and I'll fill you in. But we have like transaction A and transaction B. We will put EMD on transaction A. The buyer will actually fund transaction A to close, and then it will close transaction B. And not every escrow office will do that. Right. So we don't actually bring $1 million cash to close that transaction A. We're only bringing in the EMD. So we will pay closing costs on the front end. We will pay a percentage on our EMD as well to facilitate the transaction, but we're actually not bringing total cash to close. Does that make sense?
Interesting. So you don't have a PML or someone bringing in that. Interesting.
Nope. Yeah.
There's 2 types of double close. There's the one that they close separately and you bring in that transactional financing. What Patrick's talking about, I would call the waterfall close.
Right.
And there are certain deal structures that I'm doing right now that I am doing double closing with a better deal structure than the old-fashioned novation agreement. So I use so I've got several of those in the pipeline right now. So that might be a good topic for advanced users at some point. Where maybe we should all get together and get to know each other better and talk about some of this stuff.
Yeah, what I would say too, Brayton, because you're more advanced and probably the reason that you're asking is like if you're dealing with agents, their job is to not get sued, right? That's part of their training, and in order for them to mitigate some of that liability, they have the AOA. That's kind of like a hard sticking point to navigate when we're trying to close transactions. What we've also done to smooth that over is we'll just tell them, hey, we're actually going to be taking title in a different entity for funding purposes. And we'll show them an example AOAA, but it will be blank on the consideration. And our escrow office is okay with that. Usually the only people that push back on that is like a broker or an agent. And they're like, well, wait, this is empty. And occasionally we'll get that. In those cases, then we will disclose the assignment fee. But, I would say I don't know, like 9 times out of 10, a blank AOAA when it comes to the consideration is not an issue for us.
Yeah. I'm
But when
doing
it comes
some
to
double
larger
close.
assignments, like once you cross that like 60K threshold,
Mm.
people aren't going to take that. I would definitely double close or blank OAA for sure. Yeah.
And
I'm
yeah,
doing a little bit of both.
Brayton, we have closed that threshold, crossed that
have.
threshold together, haven't
We have, but I would
And
cry
fully
like a baby to
disclosed,
kill the deal.
and not a peep, you know. But there are other ways to talk about that with the seller as well as the agents. So it's knowing how to discuss the matter so that
Yep.
people feel comfortable with it. Did you have something you wanted to add, Efren?
No, I'm just letting you guys know that I'm doing both too with Patrick.
Okay, yeah, I was wondering.
Doing both double close, primarily assigning everything. If it's wholesale though, just straight assignment fees in California.
Nice.
And then like on my wrap buyers, I'll find the sub two and I'll find the buyer already, and it's technically a double close. You know, I don't want to have to pay, you know, for escrow fees twice. You know, but it's all one transaction if that makes sense. You know, and it takes the right escrow officer and people involved to make
Right.
Okay, so there's a few things I want to get in. I want to go too long because, this is really, and I knew this would be a great dynamic, full of gems conversation, but there are a few things I want to get in. I don't want to run too long. So the next question I'd like you guys to field, and whoever wants to raise their hand first, but what was the biggest mistake you made that you learned the most from? I know it's a loaded question, so you want to take that? Who wants first shot at that one?
I'll definitely take that one. And Gary, you know the answer to this because you sat in a mediation meeting with me.
Yeah, you and I have definitely been on the journey together.
Yeah.
All of you,
I mean, honestly, there's a lot that I've learned. I mean, and I'm still learning. I think real estate is just one of those things. I consider myself to be like a lifetime student, but I think one of the biggest mistakes that we made, and it really just kind of clarified a lot of things for me. Having that experience when it comes to dealing with agents and sellers was that we had a deal. We thought we underwrote it correctly. This was like in the beginning when we first started. And there was a trustee involved with the sale. And we submitted EMD, and I wasn't able to perform. So we had an inspection period, at which point I chose to cancel. And they said, nope, not going to work like that. And so because of that, we actually had to go to mediation. And so for those of you who've not been to mediation, it's really fun. Essentially, that's where somebody on the other end screws you over, and you have to, take it. There's no winning in mediation. But anyway, I got lucky, to be honest. 30K was in EMD, and I think I settled on releasing 5K to the trustee. So $5,000 plus legal fees. Didn't have to go to arbitration, but that was the last time I submitted EMD on a transaction I knew I could not perform on. And we still talk about it today.
Well, it was a powerful lesson for sure. But avoiding additional litigation certainly was worth it. And in this case, I think that person was out for blood going into the deal. She knew she was going to do that. How about you, Efren?
I would say the biggest lesson I learned was in my early 20s when I first started, 2008. In my mind, just being young and not really paying attention, I didn't realize what goes up, come down. And it was right when that 2008 happened and the crash happened. I had well over $200,000 out in fix and flips and properties I was working on all at once. And it just blew up, seemed like overnight. A cul-de-sac with, 8 properties and 4 of them were for sale, and they all went from 300,000 down to 150,000. So that was probably my biggest loss, and my lesson there was just, knowing that don't go all in when I thought it was just going to keep going up. Every month was just getting better. You
So
know,
the lesson was you need to always have cash reserves.
always have cash reserves, and yeah, don't put it all in. I didn't think it was going to stop though. At that point, I thought it was going to keep going up. So
That's something I hear over and over again, Efren, and especially from people that are newer in business, not having the reserves cash. Our buddy Carlos, he went through similar, and it didn't even have to have the big 2008 crash for that to happen. Just a small market shift can do that. So that's a great lesson, a great takeaway for people listening to this. Brayton, how about you?
I mean, for honestly, probably the biggest shift for my wife and I since we got into real estate investing was, we thought we were going to go and build this massive portfolio and live off the cash flow and travel in our RV. And my personal, opinion now is, don't get into real estate thinking you're going to go live off your cash flow on your portfolio. I mean, that's the wealth building side that you get later. It's a slow grow and it's delayed gratification. So don't quit your job. Don't quit your career. If you make good money, make more. Buy real estate to offset taxes, utilizing everything you can to offset taxes and build a portfolio that way. Later, you can retire and tap into that. So that's the biggest shift is we kind of like scaling a portfolio back to active income. And I wanted to shift into real estate. I've been a tattoo artist for 15 years, a glass art, basically a studio artist for 20 years, but doing glass blowing and tattooing. And so for me, being able to work from a laptop and have a totally different type of career was really appealing, and I'm passionate about it. So it's been cool. Another on the wholesale side, I was working a pre-foreclosure. This was last year was my first pre-foreclosure, and the seller was doing a loan mod, and I took the seller's word for the numbers on the loan mod and what that was going to come back at. And I thought I had like a 65K assignment, ended up having to cut it down to like 26, which was still really good, but it hurt. So that was a big lesson. Won't do that again.
That's funny that you say that because, when I first started, I wanted nothing to do with wholesale, to be honest. Like, I kind of learned a little bit about it, and I was like, that's not me, right? And I wanted what you were talking about. I was like, build this portfolio, live on the cash flow, and then you really start working in the trenches, and you realize, all right, well, there's only so many deals, number one, and number two, there's only so much cash flow, if any, right? Like, so you start to run the numbers, and you're like, no, I need to actually start making income.
Absolutely. I was talking to my business partner today about that, and it was like, I've heard Brent Daniels and both Jerry Norton say, he looks at it like high school, right? Freshman, sophomore, junior, senior year. And your freshman year, most people, they think like you, Brayton, right? Like, I'm going to go in there and I'm going to get STRs and I'm going to buy all these properties. I'm going to live off the cash flow. And they realize it's not what it's, all made up to be. And at the end of the day, freshman year should be like, how do you make the money, right? That should be wholesaling. And then your next year in it, okay, now fix and flip. You're wholesaling, you're fix and flip, and you're making more money. Then your third year, you're barely starting to buy some properties. And then your fourth year, you're lending money and you're just, on top of that. But most people think they're going to go in to, get a bunch of Airbnbs and live off the cash flow. Once you get in there and you realize, CapEx and everything else included, there's not much cash flow like you thought, And so
Right.
I've done that too myself,
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, we did it a little backwards, but everyone starts at a different place, right?
Of course, man. Yeah. You're still here now.
But yeah, and I think wholesaling, it's funny because people talk about it as a beginner strategy, but I really think you can come back to it. Like I really respect a lot of the pros that do this at a high level. I think I don't think it's a beginner. I wouldn't recommend everyone get into it. It's not easy. I don't think it's easy. At the core, it's basic to break down, but it's,
Yeah. It's not easy.
The perfect segue into my next question, which is, what's your best piece of advice to someone aspiring to get into wholesaling? Almost like heard you say don't. Besides don't do it, what would you say, Brayton, is your strong best piece of advice for a baby wholesaler?
I think understand, maybe do the avatar series and figure out like what your personality type is, because that's going to really dictate if you should go join a team and what role you might want to play in the beginning. Working with other people, you're going to get exposed. You're probably going to get exposed to a higher level of operation a lot quicker. If you're someone like myself who's more, needs to understand all the things, then you might want to go on your own. Don't go spend a bunch of money on cold callers and stuff. I would probably start with agent outreach. I mean, there's a lot of different marketing channels. So take it slow. Don't expect to get rich quick doing it, and just know you're going to make a lot of mistakes and it's going to be hard. But if you push through the informed optimism and then it gets hard and you go through once you get past the valleys, you start to close a few and you will start to build momentum. And that's when it starts to feel really good, because you're like, it's clicking, it's working, and I got to double down on what's working. But that's been my experience, at least.
What about you, Patrick?
That was like perfectly said. I'm glad that you started that with that, because I mean, I think knowing yourself is really important, because if I were to give somebody advice as to where to start, I think they should start with calling agents, because number one, it doesn't take a lot of capital, right? And is it a little bit more technical? Sure. But you're going to learn the transactions because you're going to be forced to, right? And like if you're an integrator, right, who loves looking at spreadsheets, then you might not, want to be on the phone all day, and that's okay. But now you know that you need to join a team or you need to partner with somebody, right? And so I think that what he said was really perfect. Add on to it, knowing if you're an integrator and what the heck that is, or a visionary, that's actually very powerful. I got lucky. Somebody found my group. Doss, my now business partner, is like an integrator on the extreme sense, and I'm a visionary on the extreme end as well. So we have what we refer to as rocket fuel. We've got the pieces and we work really well together. So yeah, what Brayden said, knowing yourself, number one, and knowing where you would fit in as a partner and or on a team is what's going to help you get through the tough times to consistently create, revenue.
I'll add a footnote there. The book is called Rocket Fuel. If you look that up, you can take the test online and find out if you're a visionary or an integrator. And there are people that score right in the middle. I can wear either hat with equal passion and equal amount of success. So, but don't let things like that typecast you. And that was just like the footnote to that. What about you, Efren? What would be your best, strongest advice?
Yeah, to kind of piggyback off of what they both said, I 100% agree with what Brayton said. Find out, what your avatar is in the beginning, because, when you first start out, you got a lot to do and you think you can do it all. But at the end of the day, right, you might not be a good closer. You might be better on a team. Biggest piece of advice I tell everybody when they're first starting is to go JV with people and be a part of their team and partner up with them. I JV with hundreds of people, and these are whether they're going direct to agent or direct to seller, or they just spent $10,000 on PPL and they lost all of the money that they just had. Talked to someone last year, spent $100,000 all 12 months and did 2 deals, and barely made any of it back. And it's like, what I found is, she had the money to go out there and do it, but she wasn't a great closer. So she needed a JV with me. Once the leads started coming my way, I was reviving these leads and closing deals for her. And that was her biggest thing, was like, wow, I just needed to find someone like you. So I tell everybody, partner up, JV before you spend a lot of money. JV with any of us. And at the end of the day, I think we'll be able to help you kind of scale and really figure out where you're going to fit. Are you a closer, or are you better? Are you more of an integrator? You need to find that out first.
And if any of you listening are not inside the Pay Smartby community, go to his YouTube channel and search on Avatar. I'm sure that he's shared some of that outside of the community. And if you're really smart, maybe you'll consider joining the community. Now, guys, who to you? Why should they reach out to you? And how should they reach out to you? Who cares to answer that one first?
I'll jump in. Yeah, I mean, if you guys have a deal in California and you think it's a deal and you want help finding a buyer for it, reach out. We have a great dispo team. Because we're working with agents, we usually work on really tight timelines. We typically move our deals with anywhere from like 24 to 48 hours. So we work quick. We will also tell you if it's not a deal. We will be very honest if we don't think you have a deal. If you're looking to join a team, you can email me at patrick@cashreadyhomes.com. I will give you a forewarning. We track everything. So if you are looking to join a team and just kind of be relaxed and flexible, we're not the team for you. If you want to join a team where you're held accountable and you want to work hard and make money, then we're definitely somebody you might want to check out.
People reach out to you.
Patrick@cashreadyhomes.com.
Okay, and we'll put some. We'll post that in the edit, so that'll come up on the screen. What about you, Efren?
Yeah, so anything in California, like I mentioned before, San Diego up to the Bay. I have major connections here. I've been doing this 20 years now, so I know a lot of people. Cash, innovation, creative, you name it, I can take it down or help you. Nevada and Arizona too as well, two of the other two markets. Like I said, it can be a hybrid. It can be a combination of anything creative. You guys can reach me either on social media. It's Efren Gomez, REI on Instagram, Efren Gomez on Facebook, or you can email me directly at efren@creativekeyhomes.com.
And Brighton.
Awesome. So anyone who needs help selling a deal, creative deals that you come across that might work for STRs, obviously I'd be happy to look at those and help you get that across the finish line, help you structure a deal that makes sense. But honestly, really anywhere, if it's a deal, we can move it. We can help move it. And whether it's cash or sub-twos, we do sub-twos out here in California too, and creative stuff. So whatever fits, whatever structure works for that deal is really like the name of the game, right? And I'm still wanting to add strategies in, like novations. I haven't done one yet, so I might hit you up, Efren, to do one out here in California. I have a good lead for that right now.
Absolutely.
This week. But yeah, you can follow me on Instagram at Brayton Furlong. Email me at brayton@furlong-group.com. I have a YouTube channel too. We got a little podcast I started this year on there, the Real Estate Investor Podcast, just at Brayton Furlong. But yeah, I'd love to meet you and work on deals and network and all that good stuff.
John, I really want to thank you for participating, not just in tonight's little chat that we've had here, but in my life in general. I value my relationships with all of you. You've been an amazing influence on my life, and I think all three of you are absolute rock stars, and that anybody hearing this should absolutely reach out to you guys and make a new friend, because these guys are the real deal.